The temperature is nice and warm in the Boiling Point Podcast studio, so come on in, get cozy, and let's enjoy the conversation. We empower leaders through thoughtful discussions to positively impact our world. Our host, Dave Vale, founder and CEO of Vision Coaching, Inc., is highlighting how we can thrive in business communities. Our conversations with leaders, entrepreneurs, and inspirational storytellers are shining a spotlight on empowerment. Joining Dave this week is our special guest host, Emily Roger. Let's join the conversation with Dave and Emily.
Okay, so Emily,
Dave, you should start a tech company.
Okay, there's some good. There's the reason I should tech is just not. I love it. I appreciate it, but my goodness, and our guest is trying not to laugh too hard. This is gonna, and we got a good story about laughing hard. We had a bunch of stories about laughing hard, but I wanted to start and just say, we a couple interviews ago we talked about the fact that you believe in being 5 minutes early. To if you're not 5 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late, kind of concept.
Right. Yep.
And you have been and our guest, who she's gonna introduce herself in a moment, would totally line up with that. And the irony, like I rush in, and of course I'm late, but I am earlier than the thing, and the tech doesn't work, and this that. And I just said we got to talk to Marilyn about this because she's gonna so appreciate this. And I would try my hardest to be, 5 minutes early, and it was never very successful. But anyways, we got to get into that because there's all these funny stories around that. But the guest because she spoke to one of your cohort, Royal Roads, on the topic of resilience, and she has an amazing background experience, written a book. But what was interesting is. When I invited her on, and she graciously accepted, you said, "Oh my God, I really enjoyed, this, Marilyn's presentation." So what spoke to you before we pull her in and ask her to introduce herself?
Yeah, so Marilyn spoke about the topic of resilience, and I had heard Marilyn's name before because I know others who have been coached by her, and I heard her name in the coaching world. And she spoke on resilience, and resilience is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and a topic that I have done a lot of self-reflection on. And I loved her webinar so much that I then went and researched her afterwards and found her book called How Absorbent Are Your Shocks? And I think I read it in one night. And then I went back and I did there was little questions at the end of each chapter. And because resilience is one of these things that we need it. It's a necessity now. And so how can we build it? How can we bring it out? How can it be something that is a daily practice? And I love the car analogy that she uses in the book. And it, a lot of phenomenal takeaways in it. So when I saw her name pop up on who's going to be on the episode, I was like, yes.
Yeah. I didn't make that connection. So it was really cool to hear that. So Marilyn and I have known each other for, oh my God, I had a great hairline at the time when I had pre-kids, it's just been a long journey. That we've been collaborating, working together, and supporting each other. And I describe Marilyn as one of the founding coaches of Vision Coach because it was her and I on the road trying to educate and try to do our, and having all the bumps along the way. And flying down to Texas, where do we, New Mexico, we go and do some work. And she's now in Texas. Oh my God. So Marilyn, thank you for joining us. And that's for you to introduce yourselves to the listener because you won't like my introduction.
Ooh, free reign. I'm here in free reign.
Yes.
So I'm Marilyn Orr. I am Canadian living in Texas. There's a bunch of us. Known Dave, like you said, for a very long time. So I've been a coach, a grad as well of Royal Roads University, been a coach for about 16 years now. Moved to Texas over 7 years ago with my husband to build a wellness venue. So we have a sustainable wellness venue on 20 acres of hill country outside of Austin, Texas, and still coach very much full time, and then sometimes get to facilitate wellness and corporate events as well as hosting weddings. And so kind of have a couple different hats that I wear. And am very passionate still about resilience and emotional intelligence. I see those as connected and related fields. So, yeah.
And quite active in the ICF as well, the International Coach Federation.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Originally pulled you into that some, Dave. Got the chapter started in Atlantic, Canada.
Oh my God.
Remember those days, bylaws and all that fun stuff. Just shoot Dave if he ever has to do bylaws.
Painful. It's like, I don't know, let's just do it however we want to do it. No, we got governance.
Why do we have to have rules? And then, past president here a number of years ago in the Austin, Greater Austin chapter as well. Yeah, love ICF.
And Marilyn has just like these clients all over the world. And I know those clients we collaborate on, Marilyn, that just keep coming back. Can I work with Marilyn? I had a really interesting, just very recent experience where we're coaching a number of physicians. And through the New Brunswick Medical Society, had put a pilot out and thought, well, we'll see how many physicians access this. We have a background, Marilyn and I and others, in vision coaching physicians. So we responded to the request, and we were awarded as a couple other vendors, and just really happy to be doing that. And so Marilyn's been working with a number of the physicians, and just recently one came through in the last couple of days, and so I was looking at what she wanted to work on. I thought, I think Marilyn would be like a perfect fit. And the way we do it is I do an intro call and decide if they wanted to work together. And she got back and said, "Oh my God, I looked at all the bios and I wanted to work with Marilyn." And she goes, "Did someone
that was nice.
Did someone tell you?" I'm like, "No." It was just a weird thing, So that was really cool to hear.
That was super nice.
Like the point I'm trying to make is very highly sought out as a coach, and that is always fun to just be a small part of, or just to see it, and it's just been a lot of fun. So let's talk.
Nice, Dave.
Let's talk resilience. Oh, and she's also really good at giving feedback. That's the other thing. and I use this, and we use stories in terms of stuff we've done together for years, really. And we would coach each other, and then we would do
all
feedback
the time.
on our stuff. And I talk about Johari's window, and getting feedback is really important to reduce blind spots. And anyone that isn't familiar with Johari window is JOHARI. Look it up. It's a really good communication model. And the example I use is I gave a presentation once in Fredericton, New Brunswick. And it was to a contact center, like call center managers. And I got off and I said, it was about 500 people there or whatever, right? And I'm an uneasy speaker at the best of times. So I got off and I was like, oh, so relieved it was over. So Marilyn we had a booth and stuff. I said, Marilyn, she goes, I go, how did it go? She goes, well, you want some real feedback? Said, yeah, I'd love some feedback. And this is, she helped me recognize, or through this feedback, recognize a blind spot that I wasn't even, it's a blind spot. Like I didn't know. She said, well, here's what went well. And were you a little nervous? Well, yeah. And said, well, you say you know a lot when you're nervous. And I was like, really? Like I had no idea. I said, well, how many times? Like, what do you mean? Why? I don't know. I probably quit counting it 30 times. And I'm just like, but God love her for giving me that feedback, having trusting me to take it and apply it, and it was so helpful. But I use that example about if we don't have people around us. So I just wanted so Emily she'll like, for example, why is that light so bad that you're in your camera, Dave, compared to Emily's?
So, Marilyn, I came down from Fredericton, so Dave and I could do this these podcast recordings in person, and because of all of our technical difficulties, we're not.
You're not anyway.
Good equipment. We're in separate rooms.
Oh my gosh! In the same building or not?
Well, here's Emily. Right, I could probably show you her. You know, like I can hear her over there, but we can't be in the same room because the echo and stuff, right?
Oh,
so Marilyn, where's the feedback on this? Dave, 5 minutes late. I mean, how?
Okay. Oh boy, the stories. We could spend hours just doing Dave's stories, and maybe for the holidays, you know, resilience, laughter is part of resilience. So I think if we just do Dave's stories today and people laugh their heads off, we would be giving them a resilience gift. Just a thought. Okay.
Let's talk.
So we are, Dave. We're making people laugh. Okay. So I grew up in a Canadian military family. So it wasn't, Dave, you said like 5 minutes late, 5 minutes early. No. The thing is, you'd be like an hour early before you're 1 minute late is the rule. Okay. Right? Oh yeah. So yeah, Dave and I had a few of those, you know, and some last minute drives to the airport, and
those are the people that stress me out.
Completely stressful. And then they wonder why you're so stressed. What's the big deal? Oh my God.
Too funny. For another time.
Yeah, another podcast.
So,
oh gosh.
But you've not only you appreciate resilience. It seems to me, anyways, through a lot of what you personally have lived through and your lived experience.
Yeah.
And my story about you is about you wanting to see not see other people suffer, maybe in ways that you had to get to to where you are.
Yeah. I often, when I'm talking about this, will say, is resilience, do we become resilient through nature or nurture? And I think regardless of how you get there, it's only sustained by learning new ways of thinking, new ways of behaving, new habits. And so to become an expert in resilience usually means you've gone through a lot of hard stuff. So, that's not usually a fun path to get to a place where you can, have bragging rights about being really resilient. Usually means you've gone through a lot, but it also, those hard things give you the opportunity to learn self-care, self-compassion, assertiveness, empathy. So to me, it's a lot of the emotional intelligence tools that support us, that allow us to have resilient practices in our life, whether those are cognitive resilient practices or behavioral or whatever they are. Mm-hmm.
Well, and actually, this might be a good point for people that aren't familiar with emotional intelligence, because a lot of people aren't. It's just because I know that's, and you talk about using combination.
Yes.
You do a much better job of describing it than I do. So,
So in kind of really simple terms, emotional intelligence is the combination of skills we use to understand ourselves, so self-awareness, emotionally as well, and to know how to manage ourself, right? Impulse control, emotional expression, and then also how to understand people around us, so social awareness, empathy, and then manage relationships in effective ways, and stress and problem-solving management when emotions are part of the picture. So it's a lot of different factors, but you can see when I describe those, how much those are resilience topics at the same time, right? Like if I don't have good impulse control and I'm like maybe reaching out, like lashing out as soon as I get upset, that's going to have this huge ripple effect on my ability to be well and impact my resilience, right? If my assertiveness is really low and I'm not able to voice what I need and ask to have my needs met and articulate that, that's going to impact my resilience. So yeah, they really are connected topics.
You speak about, like, when you talk about resilience, you bring emotional intelligence. I wasn't aware of that.
I do. More and more over the years, Dave. I mean, it's not, when I wrote my book, it's not the framework I looked at it through. But the more so I'm now the Central Texas rep for MHS, Multi Health Systems, which is the world's leader in emotional intelligence, headquartered in Toronto. So I've done a lot more deeper dives into emotional intelligence work. And the more I do on that, the more connected these topics are for me.
Emily, how does that, you know a little bit about resiliency from some messy situations, right? And some life experience.
Yeah.
How does this resonate with you?
It really resonates. And, the thing of when we're good at resilience, it's not usually because of being put in good situations, but
right.
How much I have really learned over the years, we can build that resilience, or I can build the resilience from the small things that we don't give ourselves enough credit for, the small things that we can get through in life. And when you build those self affirmations during those small times, then it is easier to handle when the bigger storms come your way.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And even like when I kind of think back on your book, and you were a psychologist before?
A master's in counseling.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so would you have written that book from a counseling hat on, or your coaching hat on?
I would say coaching hat. I would say that my therapist hat informed some of how I coach. But absolutely with coach hat on. Yeah.
And what's the reason for using that?
Because, a therapeutic relationship, we are leaning on the therapist, rightly so. I think a coach approach, and that's why I created a workbook, is that these are tools you can use on your own. You are in control of using them. You don't need someone else supporting you through that. Like, you can build this resiliency in yourself, independent of a therapeutic relationship. Therapeutic relationships are great. I have them off and on in my own life. I recommend them. But I think that the idea is that from a coach perspective, this is create actions. I can independently grow these muscles, resilience muscles. And so to me, that's a coach approach, right? And assuming wellness and wholeness, not brokenness, right, as a foundation to where I'm building resilience from. Mm-hmm.
Nice distinction between, the different types, the different hats, like the therapist and the coaching. What I find interesting is, the work that you gravitate towards. And my understanding of it is both resilience and emotional intelligence. I know they're very highly interconnected. What attracted me to the idea of emotional intelligence is when I learned, probably through you, that you can, that you're not stuck with your emotional intelligence anymore. And because I would half jokingly say, I'm not really interested in finding out what my IQ is if it's kind of hardwired. Because I don't want, like, what good is that going to do?
If it's bad news, what am I going to do about it?
Exactly. It is maybe a chance that it's not going to be like off the charts. But, whatever your emotional intelligence is, you can grow and develop, and similar to
100%. Right.
Interesting. So what is it about that idea that you can build and grow and develop that muscle or muscles that appealed to you?
Probably I'll pick on one of the 15 scales that we measure in the EQI 2.0 tool, and that is assertiveness. So I grew up in a family where dad was a rageaholic, 100%. None of the rest of us were, quote unquote, allowed to be angry. So I had my own anger, and any sense of even how I was feeling about something was so suppressed in order to survive childhood and life, that if you had measured my assertiveness level, my ability to articulate what I needed, what I felt, it probably wouldn't have even shown up on the chart, right? Mid-20s, I, through a series of crises and a really good friend that started really helping me discover my own emotions, emotional self-awareness, and grow my assertiveness. By the time I first took that assessment, Dave, remember way back, assertiveness was my highest score. And I'm like, wow, right? Like if you'd known me, 10 years before that, assertiveness would not have come to mind when you thought about Marilyn Orr, not Marilyn Orr at the time, but so to me, that is like, if I can have assertiveness as my highest score, knowing who I was, knowing where I came from, knowing what my attitude was to how to survive in this world, be nice, never make anyone angry, that speaks volumes. And that also says, guess what? Anyone can grow their emotional intelligence. If that's my story, we all have hope.
You would, I'm going to let Emily go here, but you told me it's funny the stories you remember, right? When you start.
Yeah.
I did the Canadian A there, by the way.
It's nice to hear.
Yeah. Y'all.
Y'all. Hey, y'all.
But you told me this great story, I believe, and unless I'm making it up, but I feel like you had this in, it was lying dormant within you. You talk about being a young girl and you're spraying those. Yes. Can you tell that story? Because it's just.
I'd love to tell that story.
I love that.
So we lived in Winnipeg, for the Canadians listening to this. And we had just this little house. We always lived off base, had this little house. And it was one of my jobs that I'd like to do was to water the flowers in the front yard. So I was probably 8 or 9 years old, had long blonde hair, like all the way down to my waist, just this tiny little gentle little girl, and I'm watering the flowers. And I can hear this biker coming down the street. Like, I don't know if it was a Harley, probably. I in my dream, it was a Harley. And it's loud, this guy all in black, and he's coming down the street. And first something snaps in me, right? And I just hose the guy. I just douse him from this garden hose. And he like screeches to a halt, right? And he turns around and you can tell he's like gonna let me have it. And then there's this complete like, what the heck is going on? There's this sweet little girl. I'm sure I was looking completely mortified. I didn't see that coming. And he just shakes his head. He's like, I don't know what that was, but I'm just gonna leave. And off he goes. And I'm like, was probably more stunned than he was that happened.
So what do you, in all the reflection you've done on that one, what was happening there for you?
Oh my gosh, it's so much repressed anger, Dave. And, just my emotions and who I was not, I was not growing up in a safe house. It was not a place where my emotions mattered or I could have control or power and I think I just saw a moment where I could have a little control for a minute and took it. Thankfully didn't get beat up as a result. Yeah. I think to me later processing it was like, wow, that little girl, was living with a lot of stuff. Like that to me was just quite a picture of how much I was having to suppress to survive childhood, right?
Wow. What do you think, Emily?
Yeah, I actually just kind of like wrote that down actually in my little notebook here. For things for me to kind of journal about later was suppressed. And it, because for me, my childhood, I certainly like unhealthy situations and did not speak in elementary school, like to the point that I had to go to speech therapy because my teacher did not think I could speak. Where my mom was like, no, she speaks. But at school, I wouldn't. And then as I became into a teenager and a young adult, and this assertiveness would kind of come up in me, and it was like, oh, whoa, like who is that? Where is that coming from? But when we can, start to uncover those areas of suppression and kind of, grow more into that assertiveness that is already innately in us, the shift that are changed, in it for sure. What, because like I've like read a lot on resilience and like perseverance me and my accidents and all kinds of things that I've been through. And what would you say is the difference between, resilience and perseverance?
I think perseverance is, putting the next foot in front of the other, right? That I'm just going to keep pressing through. I would say resilience is all the tools that can help us on that persistent journey, right? So resilience to me includes healthy friendships. Resilience includes a really self-compassionate attitude. So I would say resilience forms, maybe as the container that allows us within it to persevere. So if I don't have those resilience tools, that container, my ability to persevere is going to be drastically reduced. I don't know if that fits for you and your concepts. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it does. And I didn't kind of really have necessarily a concept, but it's like, I quite often hear people say just persevere. And it's what are you actually dealing with the stuff that's coming your way? If I persevered through a lot of stuff, there'd be a lot of suppressed.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing, my analogy in the book, I talk about, you got a gas tank, right? And if your tank's on empty, right? So, I like to say to clients, to use in a New Brunswick thing, if your tank's empty, right? It doesn't matter if you want to drive from St. John to Sussex or you want to drive from St. John to Montreal, your tank's empty. So no amount of just saying, I'm going to persevere, I'm just going to drive to Sussex anyway, this is not going to get you there. So I think the things that we do for resilience to fill our tank, to refuel, allow us to persevere. And that means processing emotion. That means journaling. That means, whatever it is, depending on the situation, in order to be able to persevere in a healthy way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it also, it's that reflection I'm hearing that's so critical and then taking some sort of action, right?
Yes.
To build. I know as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking of your counseling background. I mean, that's where some of that would probably be really beneficial for supporting a client, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe accessing and understanding some of that, but then using your coaching skills to then support what's next. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the counseling background maybe gives me insight into the layers that might be happening that we need to tap into, even with the coach hat on. I always, in my opinion, and maybe partly because of my background, I think we can cover just about any topic that you would cover in counseling with a coach hat on. Now, there's going to be a few exceptions, and there's going to be times where it's not appropriate to cover them in the coaching framework, or you might not be the person to do that. But I think it's not necessarily about the topic. So, for sure, I'm a proponent of, coaches knowing when to send someone to a therapist. That I'm not saying that at all. That's totally true. But I think my awareness of the layers of emotion and suppression and all of those things help inform the questions I ask in coaching.
Sure. One of your famous questions is, you describe a situation. Okay, well, how's that working for you? And it's bugger off, Marilyn. It's not, but I don't want to think about that.
We used to get pretty sick of coaching each other. I mean, it'd be like, oh no, I'm driving to Fredericton with Dave again. He's going to coach me the whole way there. I'm going to have this big to-do list. But then it'd be like revenge time on the way back. I'm going to coach Dave now.
Oh yeah, no, we did. That was true. Because those are early days, right? I mean, for us, even this part of the world, there's a lot. And I still think it. I don't know what do you guys both think? I mean, it feels like it's still early days in coaching even now. I mean, there's a better appreciation for it and understanding, and but I still feel like there's a lot of people that don't like. We're having this conversation, and it's important to help define what these things are, because it's these are words that are used interchangeably at times.
Yeah. And I think too, even the term executive coach, I had a potential client reached out to me the other day, and he said, well, I'm not an executive, so I don't really think, and it's like, no, coaching is coaching.
Right.
It doesn't matter like what the context of it is. Coaching is coaching. It's that approach.
Yeah.
And Marilyn, my mom, she has her master's in counseling. And so I have like grown up talking about feelings. It is so
I love it.
normal.
That's awesome.
Seeing and learning more of the difference between the two. And you know, I think for me, even having gone through so much therapy in my life, and like my mom has now referred me out, like she's done.
That's hilarious.
Getting so comfortable just with emotion.
Yeah. And that's is a great book. I don't know. I always have books handy for these kind of talks, but I don't know if you guys have come across Mark Brackett yet. This is a book. So he is in our field of emotional intelligence, right? So he's the director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. And he's doing a lot of work in the school systems, but it's this idea of permission to feel. And even just giving us language and frame of reference for emotions. It's got an app called the Mood Meter, but, you know, I think so this is often one I get my clients reading because I think we've shut, you know, societally, and especially for guys, we've encouraged a shutting down of emotions, and so we don't even have the vocab. What's that, Dave?
I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't want to talk about this.
How do you feel about this topic, Dave?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to say this. So, I mean, and I have an opinion, you know, based on experience, and may or may not be accurate, but I don't feel like we have a society that helps build emotional intelligence in boys necessarily.
Agreed. Right.
or expression of emotion. And that is as, you know, as tragic as, you know, the repression of women in my
it is. Absolutely is.
Because then you put these, you know, assuming there's a heterosexual relationship, you got these two genders together that have this different experience and trying to figure each other out. And it's like, and I was lucky because I grew up, my mother had a master's in social work. And, you know, and just had this really, you know, kind of healthy way of helping us express ourselves, but still, you know, that didn't happen when you played hockey, and it didn't happen on the playground or when you got older, you know, and it takes a while to almost kind of beat that out of yourself, right? That idea of, well, I'm not going to let them know how I'm feeling, and, you know, and being vulnerable and those sorts of things. So, so it's important work, you know. So we should make, like, we're going to naturally do this, but how do people want to, like, learn more about your book, want to learn about your workshops, stuff you do, you as a coach? How do they find it?
Yeah, so a couple ways. So I am on LinkedIn, Marilyn Orr. I am part of the vision coaching team, so my bio is up there. My own company in Texas is Capacity BC, B as in Bob, C as in cat, capacitybc.com. And my book is available on Amazon, as that's probably where you got it, Emily. I'm not sure where you ordered it, but How Absorbent Are Your Shocks is the workbook. And I'm happy to do lots of speaking, coaching around it. I do often coaching around emotional intelligence. So having your assessment done, we can work on resilience and emotional intelligence as a package as part of that. Lots of ways to support you on that journey.
Awesome. Yeah, actually, Emily, have you done your emotional intelligence assessment?
I don't think so. No.
So can I put this out there that like I'd like to sponsor that from Vision Coaching?
Nice.
Yeah, I would love that.
And a debrief from Marilyn.
Great.
And it's amazing. It's really quite brilliant. And so what Marilyn will do, like she does, you know, she mentioned her work on her own. She supports Vision Coaching and many of Vision's clients. And then she'll also, like, if, for example, I'm working with a client and there's a need for emotional intelligence assessment, or, you know, there's an opportunity, maybe I would say, more kind of a better way to put it. We'll use Marilyn, any coach for that matter, we'll use Marilyn. She'll run the assessment because she's got the certification and the experience, and then she will debrief like in this case, my client or whoever's client, and with the coach present, so you can help use that. And yeah, we got some amazing stories of people just getting that baseline and saying, I want to change this or that. And so anyways, if you're open to that,
I would love that.
Yay, let's do it, Emily.
Now scratch you off my list of people who need to buy me Christmas presents.
There you go.
That's my Christmas present to you.
I love it.
We're not supposed to timestamp these, right, Genevieve? So we pretend we did. It's not Christmas, is it? I know I haven't bought any presents yet.
Better not be Christmas then.
Exactly. This isn't about New Year, so I won't be in trouble at home. So the other thing I was hoping we talked about assertiveness, right? Mm-hmm. And you have a particular way of describing it that I've used subsequently, because a lot of times I think there's confusion. What does it actually mean? And then how does that tie into being aggressive or passive? And
right.
And so for any clients who are going to hear you explain it, please know that I try my best to explain it in the way that I remember Marilyn.
That's hysterical. So I see healthy assertiveness as this place where you are really able to clearly know, number one, and articulate, number two, what you think, feel, believe, your values, in a way that doesn't minimize yourself, right? That's important, and doesn't harm others. Might offend them. You might find my views on gun control offensive, but it doesn't harm you. So I like to think of a scale for assertiveness, and I put healthy assertiveness at a 0. And then I'd say, so what does unhealthy look like? So if I said I'm really assertive, to me, that means I'm a 0. I'm really good at articulating in a healthy way. If I go off balance and I go up to a +5, that's aggression. So aggression and aggressive behavior is where I don't really care how it impacts you. I'm going to tell you what I think, what I feel, what I want, what I need. And if it harms you, oh, well, too bad. So that's +5. -5 is passive, where I'm so concerned about not harming or offending other people that I really want to be liked, and I don't want to rock the boat, that I really minimize my needs, what I feel, what my opinion is. And that's where I started life, right? And so that's the balance. So it's that healthy place in the middle. And lately I've been doing a lot of work with a colleague on the intersection of healthy, and I think you would have heard this a little bit probably at Royal Roads in my talk, Emily. Mm-hmm. Empathy is on a similar scale in my mind. So if I am off on empathy, if I've got it out of proportion, then I'm going to be a rescuer. I'm going to be just always looking at what you need and trying to fix it for you, and not in balance with what I need. Or if empathy is too low, then, it's going to be all about me. So these two scales, Dave, and this is work we haven't done together because it's just in the last couple of years, this colleague and I have been really playing with these concepts. Empathy and assertiveness really working with each other at the right balance level. Powerful combination.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I certainly, I wasn't familiar with the empathy scale, but I did actually explain correctly when I talked about the assertiveness.
Good work.
Now there's a few wrinkles that I can add to it now that you just explained to probably for the 20th time. But I think it's a really great way to help people understand, what actually, and I'm gonna reference a couple conversations I've had with Genevieve, who's listening in. She's quite assertive. Like she'll say, well, "Wait a sec, are you considering our needs? My needs, and good. And really good at it. Oh yeah, I'm like, no, sorry, Genevieve. No, we want to,
That's awesome
or whatever. So, but but what's really helpful for me, and you're the same way, Marilyn, but like in our relationships with both you and Genevieve, and I'm sure Emily would be the same way, is I always know where I stand too.
Right.
That's nice, because if someone is too passive, you always go, like, you're trying to understand, like, did I offend? Like, did something happen? Oh,
Right.
no. And it's like, or I don't need someone saving me all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm, idea of being capable and full and all that kind of stuff. But it's just something to consider, right? Because then people around you know what to expect from you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it starts with, where I had to start with was I didn't even know. For me, I had to build that first foundation of self-awareness, right? What do I feel? How do I think about that? What is, what are my, that was so suppressed, right? That I couldn't articulate it because I didn't even know what I was feeling.
I met you long after we went through that.
Yes, you did. I was more assertive than that by the time you met me.
Yeah.
Oh,
we're
yes.
on the 0 scale.
I was shocked that it was my highest. I have to say that when I took the assessment, I'm like, what do you mean it's my highest?
Well, but in a way, it's not surprising, or at least in the way I know you, because you're like, well, I need to tell you something. And I'm like, what did I do?
Here we go. You started that, Dave, because one of the smartest thing I think we did in our relationship was to sign a psychological agreement with each other many years ago, before vision coaching even started, other work we did together. We just laid a foundation, right, of I'm committing to an honest, healthy relationship with you. And I still think of that many times a year. Like that was brilliant.
I reference that, Marilyn. And what it basically is an experience, Emily and Genevieve, that maybe we shall go through together, if we're going to work together.
Right.
Is it's, you answer questions about the relationship independently when you come together, and you actually go through them, each question, like, where do I see conflict coming up? Where do I show up really well? And you can design it in certain ways. But I've used that with a number of clients, and it's. I mean, if you think of our, like, how many 20 years we've known each other, Marilyn. I mean, there's been divorce, marriage.
That's right.
There's been children born.
Been couch surfing, immigration crises, and yeah.
Oh yeah. So I know we got to close out here, but the other thing is really interesting is we talked about vision earlier, right? And I always think of you as really, really exceptional, having a vision of where you want to be and what you want to do. And Emily, along the way, Marilyn will share some things with me, and I'm like, I just don't see how that's going to happen. And then rightly so. And we have a story we use in the coaching skills class about having an agenda and being open and non-judgmental. And unfortunately, I was the person not being open and non-judgmental. And anyway, I mean, every time.
And I hit my targets, by the way, just saying.
Yeah. I would say it's exceeded, right? But one of them was like immigration, but you were like, one thing. I do a wellness center in Texas. Emily, Marilyn couldn't even get across the border at this point. And I'm like, I think they were stopping her at the border. And she had the immigration lawyers and everything. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, I don't think that, because she'll do it. And like, sure enough, down outside of Austin. And it was like, but at the time I was just like, that's the craziest thought. Like, how could she think that? Like, she can't go to Maine. How is she?
How's she gonna build a place in Texas?
Okay, how? There was a lot of things going on at that stage in your life, but I remember thinking, yeah, she'll probably do it. So I just wanted to do that today.
Because, you never told me that, Dave. Thank you.
Because my growth in our relation, knowing you, has really helped me in life in general. Is just, who am I to count someone out? Don't count me out either, by the way. And,
right.
Let's talk about how that's going to happen, right? And there's a bodybuilding story, Emily. Yeah, it's incredible. So vision for you, that's my articulation. I don't know. Is that the way you see it, or how do you, set that intention for yourself, and then and how you achieve it?
It's funny, because even when you said that you see me as a visionary, I'm like, it's not the word I'd use.
What word would you use?
It's just it's just what I'm going to do. I mean, that's all. It's just like, I got an idea. I think it's a good idea. So let's just do it. So I don't know.
Marilyn, the characteristics that I'm seeing in you that are in me, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is.
I love it. Woohoo!
Sandy is nodding her head at that.
See a few parallels.
No, that's probably yeah. I could see that.
That's cool. I like it.
I'm getting mentally better and hearing more. It's interesting. So, but and it's what's really informing is from a coach perspective about I'm going through things where you maybe quietly counted someone out in your mind. It starts to show up, right? So now it just becomes an awareness. Like I don't see how she's going to do that, but it's like, well, let's talk about how she thinks she's going to do that, or he, or whatever, or me. How I feel I'm going to achieve X, Y, or Z. Yeah. And then if they, it's called, I don't know what to call it, reality testing. If they can lay out the plan and, knowing that it's going to adjust and shift and ebb and flow, right. And it seems like, then I feel like, okay, well, why couldn't you do that? It's just that you had the U.S. government didn't want you in the country.
That's right. That took a little convincing. I think it's great, Dave, when we take it back to coaching, right? It's that I don't need to know how my client's going to do it. I just need to believe, and still ask the questions and do the check-ins, but I need to believe and help them know how they're going to do it. And it's a great humbling reminder that there's going to be parts of this that are way beyond my scope as a coach. That's okay. Like, it's not my dream, right?
Yeah. No, and that's good. I'm glad that's a new one. It's about them building me building that plan for ourselves and for theirs. Building that plan for, as we know. But it's hearing that plan and then, and I think appropriately challenging it so someone can
absolutely
obstacles and maybe the fact that I gotta drop my kids off at daycare and I put my workout time at the same time to achieve my fitness goal, that might not work, as an example.
Yeah. And even just and what will it cost you questions, right? Like, for sure, building a wellness venue in Texas has not all been easy. Trust me. Right.
Really?
I think my strength and my downside is just like this, like, yeah, we can do this. I'm sure if we brought Bill in, he might be like, what were we thinking?
I love that. Marilyn, I was actually in the Texas Hill Country probably 8 years ago now for a triathlon.
No kidding.
Camp. Yeah. And about an hour north of Austin. And I loved it.
Isn't it pretty?
Oh,
yeah. It's so pretty. Oh, that's cool. Next time you come, we have to get together.
Absolutely.
Well, it's a destination for our family when we can travel again and do that fun stuff.
Good.
But so we're at the end. Any final thoughts from you, Marilyn?
Just what a pleasure. And, I think we're all resilience experts. We may not use that frame, but we've all learned the muscles, and especially COVID has kind of taught us all that, wow, we're more resilient than we thought we could be. So I would just say intentionality is probably the best tool around resilience is know that you can grow it, but putting intention to it, doing it on purpose, finding those ways to grow your emotional intelligence is absolutely should be a lifelong journey for all of us.
Awesome. What about you? Takeaways for you, Emily?
Yeah, on the resilience topic about how it is in all of us and it can be grown, and that it really is a reflection in how we think about ourselves, how we view ourselves, and then the action that we take to it. And that it's, to keep growing on it, to keep working on it, because trials, tribulations, they're going to come. That's inevitable in life. But when we can have the skill sets to then be able to handle them, how much easier those road trips to Texas are.
That's right.
My takeaway is is all the road rash that you and I have over 20 years of, trying all these things and that we've preserved a friendship as a result, and this many years later. And I think the underpinnings of that, I believe, like you brought it up, but I totally agree. It was the elements of the psychological contract or agreement.
Yeah. Agreed. I agree. Yeah.
Which is a really cool thing to do. So, well, I'm so glad, like, I've been meaning to have you on here for quite some time. And we got two coaches doing some, co-hosting at this, this kind of juncture. So it just seemed like the perfect time to have a conversation with coaching and all these things.
Well,
and
thank you for the invite.
Yeah, well, and I really, anyone listening, you should absolutely check out capacity building coaching, or whatever the URL will be up in the notes. And then I look forward to hearing your experience, Emily, when Marilyn walks you through the emotional intelligence.
Yeah, great.
For that, thank you.
Actually, and John, if you want to do one too, it could be your Christmas gift if you're interested.
Ooh, Christmas presents.
Yep.
But not really Christmas. Not really Christmas, because we don't mention time.
But for 2022.
yeah, ahead in the future. Yeah.
Go for it, like if you're interested, because it's a really cool experience.
Well, it's very funny because I know I give Dave a hard time every time I pop on and make fun of him for not knowing the ending of everything we say. But this podcast is one of my favorite things as far as work that I do because of that relationship with Dave and Greg and other co-hosts. Because it is a very open environment, and you are okay with when I say things like, "Hey, you forgot to make me the co-host," and you just roll with it.
Dave's good at receiving feedback.
Every time receiving feedback. And one of these days he's going to master this part right here, which is telling people that if they want to find out more about the Boiling Point is to head over. No, he won't. Head over to the boilingpointpodcast.com. You can find all of our different conversations there. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can listen to the podcast on all your favorite platforms. You can like, share, subscribe, and you can watch these lovely videos so that you get Dave's reactions to us making fun of him on Facebook and YouTube.
And Marilyn, we have Chief Justice Ron Vale on next.
You do.
Talk about alternative dispute resolution and his understanding of using coaching skills to keep people out of the court system.
There's so many great stories with that Chief Justice that I hope get included.
Some of them. I told him I wouldn't embarrass him, so because he said he I don't know, he'd probably sue me or something. So I don't want to mess with that.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Enjoy Texas, y'all.
Thank you, y'all. Thanks so much. It's been fun.
What a pleasure. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Boiling Point Podcast. Remember to subscribe and rate our podcasts on your favorite listening platform. To find out more, head to our website at boilingpointpodcast.com. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. To find out more about Dave Vale's work, head over to visioncoachinginc.com. Thanks for listening, and make sure to check out our next conversation.